What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of ParaTruth Reborn. This is a pre-recorded show on 107.7 FM New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. My name is Erik.
And I'm Justin.
And today we are going to talk a little bit about the Pyramid of Giza, the Nazca Lines, and Stonehenge. Why? Because these very interesting and yet ancient wonders of the world have been quite a mystery for many, many years, ever since their discovery. The biggest questions being whether or not these ancient wonders are actually works of human hands, or if perhaps there's evidence of a lost alien civilization. Today, I ask that you guys prepare to have your perception of history challenged as we discuss fact or fiction, ancient aliens.
Well, we've all seen the show. Of course,
We have.
aliens.
So, right off the bat, we're gonna just kind of start with describing each of these three particular wonders or locations. In this case, the structures themselves. So let's begin first and foremost with the Pyramid of Giza. Now, the Great Pyramid of Giza, everybody knows, like, all you have to say is the pyramid, and everybody's probably thinking of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's extremely popular, right? We all know it. It's also known as the Pyramid of, I believe it's Khufu,
Khufu, I think.
Khufu. Okay, Khufu. Sorry. Now, it is the oldest and largest of the three pyramids in the Giza Pyramid complex, and one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was built as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu, also known as what is that? Cheops?
Cheops, yeah.
Interesting. In Greek, of the 4th dynasty of Egypt in particular. Now, if you've not been to the Great Pyramid of Giza, just as Justin and I have not been, you're probably wondering where the location is if you don't know it. The pyramid is actually located on the Giza Plateau, on the west bank of the Nile River near Cairo, Egypt. Now, its construction was believed to be around 2580 to 2560 BC, and it's estimated that it took about 20 years to build. That's a pretty long time by today's standards, considering. Now, the size of the Great Pyramid was originally 146.7 meters, which is, for those of us on the metric system, 481 feet tall, making it the tallest structure in the world for over 3,800 years. Now, erosion and removal of the outer casing have reduced the height to about 138.8 meters, which is, again, 455.4 feet. So not a ton, but significant enough.
Still big.
Yeah, very much so. Now, what was its purpose? We already kind of talked about this or briefed over it, but its purpose was simply to serve as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, and it was designed to house his sarcophagus and other treasures as well. It's also symbolized, or was meant to symbolize, his power and status. Basically, the bigger the pyramid in this case, the more popular and famous this particular pharaoh was.
Which was common in that time. I mean, even today, billionaires get the big mausoleums and everything. Right. So.
Now, it's estimated that around 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing on average of about 2.5 tons, were used in its construction, which is significant when you think about the time and how heavy these particular rocks were, or blocks. Now, the pyramid remarkably aligned with the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west with incredible precision. An unfathomable precision and astronomical alignment suggests advanced knowledge beyond their supposed time. Now, again, when we talk about advanced knowledge beyond their time, we really don't know what kind of knowledge ancient peoples had, nor the type of tools they had. This is, in all honesty, I think it's just something that is said out of ignorance by most scientists and most people who are talking about ancient times, not believing that possibly they were smarter and had better tools than we do even today in 2025.
Yeah, there's been talk too of them using sound waves to move these bricks. I've seen a lot of different a pulley system, different theories on it. I think a lot of people still believe that they use some type of sound wave technology to move these bricks, but with them being so precise to the north, south, east, and west directions is where I think a lot of people question some of this stuff, because how could they have known that? But again, to your point, yeah, we don't know. And I seriously feel like we are a little de-evolved from the technology that they might have had back then.
Oh, 100%. There's actually a decent amount of evidence that suggests that ancient peoples had significant tools that we today can't even fathom having or understanding, just based on the pyramids themselves. There's been a number of archaeologists who claim that they cannot replicate the exact dimensions and build the pyramids the exact way that they are built. The some of these spots are so like where the rock or the blocks layer each other, you can't even fit a thin piece of paper through there,
right?
Just because of how tight they are. And we don't have the type of technology to cut blocks to that type of dimensions today at the time. So that also is very interesting and significant. Not to mention ancient civilizations that seem to just disappeared off the face of the earth, which were claimed to be one of the greatest cities in all the world, with high advanced technology, possibly alien technology that surpasses anything that anyone can even possibly fathom today. Now, why do people believe that? I mean, of course, it all comes up to assumption based on some of these stories that have been written about various places. But nonetheless, this is, I think, a very significant structure within our world that kind of suggests maybe there's something more to it than simply humans either A, building it themselves, or that these humans were maybe not as Neanderthalic as I think many people believe them to have been.
Yeah, I think they've really pushed on the Ancient Aliens show that this had to have been some type of otherworldly influence. All of these that we're going to be talking about right now had to, other than them being ignorant to what technologies they had, I don't understand how they are just coming to that conclusion. Like I want to believe that we've had visits in our past history, but at the same time, it's a lot of assumption.
Right. I think what it comes down to is that many people, individuals who study this stuff, who want to believe in aliens, are more willing to claim that extraterrestrials came down and helped rather than just give the credit to the ancient people who possibly built it themselves without any help. It's easier for them to fathom it that way, and I think it's more exciting as well. Of course, that's not to say there isn't some interesting evidence that points to possible help from outer space, but nonetheless, I do think that the idea of extraterrestrials helping Egypt, in this case, build these pyramids does make it extra interesting and more fun to really to research and connect to.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one we're going to talk about also is Stonehenge. Now, Stonehenge is a prehistoric megalithic structure on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England, 2 miles or 3 kilometers west of Amesbury. It consists of an outer ring of vertical sarsen standing stones, each around 13 feet high and 7 feet wide. That's 4 meters high and 2.1 meters wide. For those of you who choose that particular type of measuring system. And they weigh around 25 tons. Now, they're topped by a connecting horizontal lintel stones, which are held in place with mortise and tenon joints, a feature which is very unique among contemporary monuments. Now, inside is a ring of smaller blue stones, and inside these are freestanding trilithons, two bulkier vertical sarcens joined by one lintel. The whole monument, now ruinous, of course, is aligned towards the sunrise on the summer solstice and sunset on the winter solstice. The stones are set with earthworks in the middle of the densest complex of Neolithic and Bronze Age monuments in England, including several hundred tumuli, which are basically burial mounds. Now, it has been used for ceremonial purposes and modified by many different groups of people at various times throughout history. But archaeological evidence suggests that the first modification of the site was made by early Mesolithic hunter-gatherers. The massive stones, transported and erected with seemingly impossible techniques, of course, sparked debate about alien involvement as well. And of course, this is our first real connection to the pyramids. How can something, a structure built with such large stones, basically, or large blocks, be able to be moved so far out from civilization and built upon, stacked upon one another?
Well, and not to mention, like, I had never seen this evidence before, that there is evidence that Mesolithic hunter-gatherers had been around it. Last I had seen, it was said that the Druids had constructed this. And I mean, I of course kind of look at history here and there throughout time and the different theories, but I never heard that close to caveman type people were ones that were kind of starting the modifications of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is even more interesting just because of the place, not just the placement of the stones, but of how big they are, and they're pillars, not just like stone bricks. So
right, these are things that not only had to be erected in a certain fashion, but then to balance another 25-ton type of stone or whatever on top of them is pretty incredible, considering the times. And again, we don't know what really existed back then, if there were some special technology that humans had. But this is also, of course, what leads many people to believe that there's some sort of extraterrestrial connection to the building of these.
Now, I think you know more about this than I do. Were the Georgia Guidestones supposedly erected around the same time as Stonehenge, or was that something that people had done up more recently?
I honestly don't know. I don't know that one.
Okay,
offhand.
I didn't look it up just because I feel that for some reason I want to say that they're a little more recent than like somebody just went and did this because of Stonehenge, but I could be wrong on that.
I could tell you there's a mini Stonehenge here in Cleveland. That one is probably built by some interesting aliens.
And I mean, just like the pyramids in Egypt, there are huge pyramids in South America too, that people believe that there's some type of connection between those pyramids and the ones in Egypt. What that means, I don't know, other than maybe mind-liked people that had the same idea, or again, I guess it's possible ancient aliens. That's why the pyramids. But yeah, the Stonehenge is one that I've always been fascinated with, and I've always wanted to visit. Not that the pyramids aren't, but Stonehenge sticks out just because it's so odd. And I don't know why, but the Druid connection had always grabbed me for whatever reason.
Right. Well, now our final wonder of the world here that we're going to talk about, which also has connection and likeness to both the pyramids and the Stonehenge, is the Nazca Lines. Now, the Nazca Lines have really been these have been researched a lot, and these have been studied for years, and there's still continued research and study on these, as these all these places are. But these are specifically very interesting for one particular reason, and we're going to talk about that in a moment here. But first and foremost, the Nazca, sorry guys, the Nazca Lines are a group of over 700 geoglyphs made in the soil of the Nazca Desert in southern Peru. They were created between 500 BC and 500 AD by people making depressions or shallow incisions in the desert floor, removing pebbles and leaving different colored dirt exposed. There are two major phases of the Nazca Lines, of course, and that is the Paracas phase from 400 to 200 BC and the Nazca phase from 200 BC to 500 AD. Now, in the 21st century, several hundred new figures had been found with the use of drones, and archaeologists believe that there are more to be found still. Now, immense geoglyphs visible only from the air raise, of course, a very interesting question about their creation and purpose, and which also leads many theories proposing alien influence. The simple reason being, many of these Nazca lines, these in some cases animal like shapes that were created, could only be seen from the air. You would not know what these were if you were standing in them or next to them. So, why? If this was happening or built between 500 BC and 500 AD, we know, at least based on current archaeological understanding, and of course the various manuscripts, that there was nothing flying in the air at that time other than birds. So, what is the reason for creating something like this? It's the same type of deal with what do you call them? What was the thing? I can't think of the name. Crop circles that are typically made.
That's funny. We both had the same thought because as soon as we were talking about this, I'm like, well, I guess it's kind of like the crop circles.
Well, exactly like the crop circles, but even those, I mean, yes, I understand like whoever owns the crop may go out there, step in the middle, like, oh, this is weird, right? But they still can't view it without getting up high to see it. And back then, as far as we know, no one owned this land in particular. It was just there, and these things were created. And many of these things were created right on cliff edges, almost as if they were like landing strips in a way, which is very interesting as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest theories is them being landing strips. But why include animal shapes? I believe that there's a thunderbird shape in there. There is a theory that maybe the Nazca people had access to hot air balloons. Again, ignorance meeting science and nobody really digging deep to find out what technology they could have had back then. I've seen that a lot where people have said, yeah, it kind of looks like a landing strip, maybe for UFOs.
Right.
But there's so many different feats in technology, the seven wonders of the world. I mean, look at the Great Wall of China. That is huge in and of itself. Now, granted, yes, it's a good possibility that humans could have just built that because they are smaller bricks. It's just huge, so it would have taken them a very long time to do. But these three in particular are ones that are debated over and over again about the ancient alien theory. Now, to go into the ancient astronaut or the ancient alien theory, it's a pseudoscientific idea that proposes intelligent extraterrestrials visited Earth and influenced ancient human cultures. And I mean, if you guys haven't seen the show, I do recommend watching it because it is rather fascinating. But it is suggested that the aliens not only influence culture, but technology, religion, even human biology. The theory that the Anunnaki created the humans by splicing their DNA with a kind of caveman-like being that was already here. There have been the rumors that what I'm trying to think of. Oh, the Egyptian gods. Most of them had not human heads, but human bodies, which would suggest possibly an alien of some sort. Because if you look at other civilizations outside of Egypt and even South America, because South America, there was a very similar situation where, and even Native American culture, where their gods, their deities are not human looking, whereas like ancient Greece, the ancient Romans, even Christianity, or all the Abrahamic religions, it's more of a humanized version of the deity. So that's what really fascinates me about the ancient Egyptians and even ancient South American cultures, is that their deities were very different compared to much other cultures. Proponents suggest that these extraterrestrials were misinterpreted as gods, and their advanced technology and knowledge were attributed to divine origins. Now, the core concepts of the ancient alien theory or ancient astronaut theory is extraterrestrial visitors. The theory posits that extraterrestrials visited Earth in the distant past, possibly during prehistoric times. Influence on culture and technology. I've already kind of covered that already, but we've talked about how the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Nazca Lines, to our knowledge, or at least our scientists' knowledge, these people had no technology that would have been able to do that. Deities as extraterrestrials, human evolution. Again, like I said, the Anunnaki supposedly used their DNA to evolve humans to what they are now. A couple of people that kind of talk about this is Erik von Daniken. I have heard him on different interviews, and I have a couple of his books, I believe, too, because at one point we were supposed to get him on for Chariots of the Gods, and he ended up having to cancel. But he's one that is huge into the ancient alien theory and has kind of ignited the widespread interest and controversy in it. Zachariah Sitchin, his interpretation of the ancient Sumerian texts claim contact with the Anunnaki, advanced beings from a planet beyond our solar system. However, if you look at the Sumerian text, the Anunnaki were their deities as well. So not only are you seeing that same type of practice where deities eventually became known as aliens, but the Sumerians are one of the most ancient cultures out there too. And then the missing link of human evolution. Some argue that gaps in the fossil record point to extraterrestrial intervention in human evolution, and a controversial claim for that as well, because again, it's one of those things that we don't have the evidence, so it's still not been. And a lot of people claim, Bigfoot is a part of that missing chain as well.
Well, that kind of takes a big chunk out of the whole evolution theory, because there is no evidence supporting a true evolution change from, say, apes to humans, or really any other animal to something else. It doesn't exist within the archaeological science. We don't have any artifacts that support that. We don't have any skeletons that support that. So the idea of Darwinism's, or I should just say Darwin's, evolution theory simply is just based on a hypothesis, not even a real theory. It's a question that maybe this happened, but there's nothing to support it. It's just a bunch of fairy tales at the moment, really. Even the specimens that we do have, we have had scientists come through and say, well, hey, this particular, I think there's this like kind of, it seems like a Neanderthal type character. Her name is Sue, that travels around in various museums.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks human, but she also looks ape-like. And they say that this is the true, the definition, I guess, of evolution in this particular package, this body. However, what they don't tell most people is roughly 95% of all the bones in that particular being that they have on the showroom floor of these museums is fake. There's only 5% that it actually found out in the real world, and those particular bones, if they were flipped, would simply belong to an actual ape. So that's either A, mistaken identity, or B, somebody trying to push the idea of evolution by purposely adjusting various bone structures in hopes of tricking people into believing something that isn't really true. For whatever reason, we don't know. It could just be one person's way of trying to spark their own claims and make them fruitful, when in reality, we just don't have that kind of evidence. On the flip side, the Anunnaki, this whole thing is very interesting, I think, when it comes to these deities, especially in Egypt, who had these animal-like heads or features in the bodies of humans, because there are a couple things that come to mind. The first and foremost, of course, is the Nephilim, which were basically these angels who fell from heaven, basically slept with human women and created the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were, of course, these half angel, half human hybrids, which were known as men of renown. These were giants. These are people who, were more or less gods in a way. They had special abilities in some cases. On top of that, when you consider books like The Lesser Key of Solomon, which is forwarded by, and I believe most of it was written by Aleister Crowley, the 72 demons in which he claims that Solomon had sunned, all have very interesting animalistic features upon human bodies, which is, again, intriguing to me, because here we're talking about demons that have the same features as the Egyptian gods that also discuss these Anunnaki, which were supposedly either are or had spliced human DNA to some extent to create these other people or beings. So it's a weird but very interesting connection through the timeline that we're seeing here. And whether or not, these Anunnaki are indeed the Nephilim, or whether or not they're actually the angels that fell, back before the flood, one can only really assume. We don't have the evidence or the answers to that particular question. But nonetheless, I do find it all very intriguing, and I see some pretty great connections throughout history, which aligns all these particular entities.
Well, and I haven't been sending you these videos just because I haven't seen any evidence to the validity of it. But supposedly, there's people claiming that, I believe it was I want to say it was New York, but if you guys know what I'm talking about, please correct me. That apparently the Anunnaki hijacked television broadcasts for 3 minutes, saying they know what's going on Earth, they know of the war in the sky, and that they're here to help. And again, I have not seen anybody that is claiming this share the actual, like, if that were to happen, who wouldn't have been grabbing their phone to record what was on the TV?
This was happening, but only one person in all of New York was watching TV at the time, and they were too busy painting their nails or something.
Right. Well, it was, there's been multiple people on TikTok, and I think I've seen a couple of even YouTube videos of people claiming it. But again, it's secondhand story. They haven't seen the video either. They've just heard people talking about it. But there are people also claiming that the meteors that were falling were not meteors, one guy in particular even claimed he found what had fell, and it had an inner glow. Again, not to really believe it per se, because that could all be faked. The meteor falls, obviously not, but
I mean, I feel like even in that case, like if this person, did he have video or photo evidence of this?
he was taking a video of the supposed object that he found. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, but in this day and age, you could have just like 3D printed that and put a light in it. You could have just put a light underneath a piece of really dark obsidian glass, and there were spots that it was shining through. But some of the videos I've seen of the meteors, like one's hitting another object, and they're saying that's the war in the sky, that there's these other alien or extraterrestrials fighting over the skies of the Earth.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to, like, you know, I want to see legit evidence of this, like posted all over the news, all over television. Like that kind of stuff should be like, hey, let's shut down all TV and only share this because this is interesting, very interesting things happening in space. But one thing that I often think about when we talk about stuff like this is the scriptures, which say that do not call every conspiracy, or be careful what you call conspiracies. But on top of that, that we're going to hear rumors that are going to basically pull us away from the truth of Christ coming. And now we're hearing about these alien possible fights in the sky, and we're hearing about TVs being jacked, or we're hearing about various entities within the forests that are now coming forth. You know, there's all these different things pulling at us in every different direction, and nothing's really pointing to one particular source. And I think that is an agenda in and of itself, whether it's a human agenda or a demonic agenda or something else entirely. The point is, I think that we are having our eyes pulled to various sources, that we're not too focused on one particular thing for a reason. It's a type of deceit that I think is trying to be used to cloud our understanding of what's truly going on, leaving us in this kind of like disoriented state of confusion, which isn't good for most people. We need to understand what's happening in the world, what's happening within the spiritual world. It's, you know, I think we need to be very careful to understand our wits, you know, be sensitive to the things around us and ask questions, because that is the most reasonable way to really grasp a hold of what is truly happening, and to learn what is true and what is false, and what is just simply faked.
Well, and even going outside of the Bible, Project Bluebeam, yes, it's a conspiracy theory, but it's also, I believe they've declassified that document as well, where we would be led to believe that whatever deity we worship, or if you believed in aliens, if you didn't believe in a deity, but you believed in aliens, whatever it is you believed would be broadcast in the sky, no less. And, you know, going into, you know, technology that we don't know that certain peoples had at the time. This was it the 50s and 60s, or was it later than that for Project Bluebeam? I can't remember.
Later, I think it was like the 60s, I believe.
Okay. You know, that we as in the United States would have technology to do that in that time. But there are people that say that the government and the military complex have much more advanced technology than civilians have too. So, you want to go into evidence and examples?
Yeah. So, let me get my notes up here. All right. So, evidence and examples beyond what we've already discussed about here. Now, first and foremost, of course, is the ancient artifacts in and of themselves. So, Ancient astronaut theorists often point to artifacts that seem to defy the technological capabilities of their time as evidence of extraterrestrial influence. Examples of this include the goodness gracious, that's a big word. Antikythera mechanism, the Nazca Lines, and certain depictions within ancient art. These particular depictions within ancient art, by the way, are typically of human-like entities wearing what very much appear like space suits, like modern day, astronaut suits.
Yeah.
Also, various vehicles that seem to be hovering over the sky, over a group of people, or over, a particular structure.
Some people even claiming that certain depictions show like a computer type technology or a cell phone type technology, even watches, when they believe that watches were not invented yet back then too.
Right.
And then, I mean, that can go into a whole other stream of thought with time travelers and stuff like that too.
Right. Uh, Another example is ancient texts. So, ancient texts and myths from various cultures, including Sumerian, Egyptian, and Mayan, are interpreted as describing encounters with alien beings and their advanced technologies. And of course, these are things that are, again, I think the key word here is interpreted as describing. Mind you, that when it comes to ancient technologies, many people, or sorry, rewind. Ancient texts, when it came to those type of things, the people writing those, they would use what they could best, any words that would best describe what they were seeing at the time. So many of these cases that can be seen or interpreted, quote unquote, as what might be extraterrestrial vehicles may simply just be a coincidence, and this is how they could best describe that particular thing they were seeing. There's an account in Ezekiel in which Ezekiel describes the Lord coming down on angels, basically on a throne, and everything he says within the scripture does very much sound like it could be what today we would consider a UFO, or in this case, something that is an extraterrestrial machine. Which is not to say it isn't, and it isn't possible. I mean, the fact that God is, he lives outside of space and time and earth. He is technically extraterrestrial because he's not of this earth. He's beyond it. So, obviously, when we think about those kind of things, we got to be very careful on the definition and how we word those. But nonetheless,
I think there's a couple of references in the Bible that people have claimed ancient aliens over a more scriptural based type.
I mean, there's a couple, but Ezekiel is the number one most commonly drawn to and theorized about. That's the one that I'm always hearing on various TV shows and within reference in other books as well regarding alien technologies, especially.
Right.
Another one is, of course, the pyramids and monuments. Just the fact that the construction of them are such a large scale, like the pyramids of Egypt and other ancient monuments, is often attributed to extraterrestrial guidance or assistance. There's a lot of current scientific belief based on archaeological evidence that when the Egyptians were building the pyramids, they were using a type of, they were using elephants along with a system which would allow these elephants to roll these blocks. Not the blocks themselves wouldn't roll, but they would put them on like logs, and these logs would, help to move these blocks up to the pyramids, and then it has some sort of mechanism that would allow them to string these things up or rope them up on top of each other. Now, of course, what exactly that mechanism was, how it was done, that's again all theory, and there's been tons of things written upon it, so you can just Google that, and you'll see a bunch of pictures in Google, by the way, to help kind of exemplify what it is I'm trying to say. But nonetheless, same thing with Stonehenge. Same thing using elephants or some other like cattle and whatnot who are capable of maybe moving some of these stones. And I'm not saying one elephant, one cattle. We're talking about a group of these creatures that are capable as a whole to move these. But nonetheless, there has been great theory that, again, alien technology was used. Was it something like a ship, or some sort of craft that was able to levitate these things, these blocks, and move them on top of one another, higher, higher and higher and higher. We don't know. We don't really know. But that's not to say it isn't possible.
Yeah. Well, we have lever and pulley systems still today. So to claim that, that's a new technology, it's like, I feel it's been around a lot longer than most people realize.
Right. Oh, 100%. Finally, of course, we have the religious beliefs. And this is that ancient astronaut theorists suggest that many religious beliefs and practices stem from interaction with extraterrestrial beings, which, as I'd already said, isn't necessarily wrong when you consider these beings that they're interacting with are literally not of this earth, but from beyond it. Again, the definition of extraterrestrial is a pretty broad definition, but I think when most people use it, they're thinking of the typical alien beings that modern, entertainment likes to talk about, the space Martians and all that stuff.
The space Martians.
Space Martians. Yeah, as opposed to Earth Martians.
I mean, there's that whole theory too, but we won't get into it today. So obviously, of course, there are critics and skeptics about the ancient alien theory, and I feel no matter what we talk about in the paranormal, you should always be skeptical of a lot of the information that's out there. But Erik already mentioned this lack of concrete evidence. The theory relies heavily on a speculation and interpretation of ambiguous evidence with no definitive physical proof of alien intervention, meaning we have not found any old space ships or UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. We have not found evidence of any of these technologies that we've been told, of course. And there's no evidence to suggest that any of these cultures had this type of technology. Not that they couldn't have, but there's no evidence of it that we're being shown.
Right.
Alternative explanations. Conventional archaeology and historical research offer plausible explanations for many of the mysteries attributed to aliens. And lastly, misinterpretation and bias. Critics argue that proponents often selectively choose evidence and disregard opposing viewpoints to support their claim. This goes across the board on a lot of things, not just the ancient alien theory.
Right. And that goes back to my whole evolution thing too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the whole evolution thing today, we see that, a lot of apes have very similar genetic markers that we do. That's not to say that we came from apes, because we do have pigs. A lot of, well, I was just going to say, there's a couple of different animal lines that have very similar markers that humans do. It's if you follow science, we're all from the same planet. Of course we have similar markers.
Right, all created by the same God. Naturally, we all have, we're all created by his spirit. So there's like you said, there's always going to be markers that indicate some sort of connection in some way.
Yeah.
Whether or not that connection literally leads to us evolving from, a tadpole or a monkey or a pig. I mean, someone can give me legit evidence of that.
Right. So in conclusion, the ancient alien theory remains highly debated with no definitive answer. While it fuels debate, it's important to approach it with a critical eye. Again, I already mentioned it before. Be skeptical. Have those doubts. It's one of those things that does make us human, that makes us realize that everything that's being presented to us cannot be the 100% truth. And the vastness of the universe and the mysteries of surrounding our past leaves open the possibility of extraterrestrial life, but we must rely on scientific evidence and rational analysis. Same thing again with Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. We're finding evidence to suggest that these things exist, but definitive evidence is not being presented. A corpse. When people find hair or fecal matter, it comes back inconclusive. So to most people that are looking for that evidence, it's like, oh, it's inconclusive. It's got to be a Bigfoot. No, it means that either there was a contamination, degradation, or a species we just haven't found yet. And that could be Bigfoot. However, you can't just conclude, oh, Bigfoot, 100% Bigfoot.
Right. Well, that's the whole goal. We all want Bigfoot to exist, at least to some extent. And it's pretty normal, I think, for a lot of us to want to jump to that conclusion. And that, again, goes to being critical. It's not just being or remaining critical to other people's viewpoints and what they're trying to share with us, but we have to be critical of our own viewpoints and what we're sharing with other people. We are all, first of all, I know this word is it's probably not the best word to use. We are all human. Okay. We all kind of fall short in many different ways. Some of us more than others. But with that said, we always want to be right. That is natural for people. And we will, not necessarily on purpose, twist some evidence to support our theories and make us feel better and feel right. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but we have to be careful because the things that we are feeding to people, we are then being fed back to us. And we don't like it when we feel like people are lying or twisting truths and things like that.
Yeah.
So likewise, we need to keep an open mind there when, researching this type of stuff and sharing the evidence. There's nothing wrong with coming to a conclusion saying, I think in conclusion, this is an alien species or a Bigfoot or whatever you have it. But again, I do believe we just have to have some critical discernment when we're taking the time to research these things and share them with our fellow folks who are also interested in these particular topics.
Well, and, with all the different videos and stuff coming out now, and with AI being more and more prevalent in it.
Crazy.
I love the Bigfoot vlogs and alien vlogs and all the stuff that people are coming up with now. It's hilarious, but you could just as easily say, all right, AI, put a extraterrestrial walking out of the Giza pyramid, and it would look very real compared to years ago. So yeah, I send Erik tons of videos most of the time just because it piques an interest for me. It's not always 100%. Hey, look, what do you think about this? It's more just like, this is really weird. I want you to see it type of stuff. But sometimes I'm asking him, does that even look remotely real to you? And most of the time with his cinematographic background, he can spot things that I can't, and most people can't. But in your final thoughts, what is your opinion? Is there even a remote chance we were visited in ancient times by extraterrestrials?
I say inconclusive. I know it's a cop out.
You're one of those Bigfoot people.
Yeah. It just goes back to what I was saying earlier in the show. Whether or not, if indeed extraterrestrials, and by this in particular, we're talking about aliens like the Greys, the reptilians, things like that. If they did visit ancient Egypt or any of these ancient sites and help them build these things, if the Nazca Lines were developed so that these particular individuals could see them from outer space or from the sky, it is very possible that those aliens are not just what we believe today, modern day to be aliens, but very well could be the ancient biblical aliens as well, in that these are angelic beings from outside of Earth's atmosphere, from outside the universe, even that created these giants like the Nephilim, who were, again, people of renown. These were people, individuals who had abilities. They were kind of crowned as gods and as kings, and they led battles and they built things that normal people couldn't do. They had special knowledge, as far as we understand, that again, at the time, maybe people didn't know, but it's very possible they helped develop technologies that we today don't believe in, that we don't believe could have happened, back in 500 BC to 500 AD.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know. And why are we not seeing this evidence of this stuff? Maybe they're no longer here on Earth. Maybe they took them back with them. There's so many theories that go into it, of course, but that's also not to say that these weren't typical gray or reptilian-like entities or some other of the 100 various types of species of aliens that we've come to learn about over the years. The simple fact is, and I always like to reference Jesse Marcel Jr. I talked to him many years ago. And when we were talking about the 1947 Roswell incident with his father, he said at the very end, after I asked him what he thought, do aliens exist? He says, to say that aliens exist would be to basically believe that we are not special, that the Lord didn't create us specifically, because he doesn't mention it in the Bible, right? So we would make him a liar because he never mentioned it. But to say they don't exist would be to prohibit God's creative ability. And considering how vast our universe is, there are galaxies we've not even seen, can't even understand yet, can't even acknowledge. And to believe that we are the only living beings in all the universe that we can see, let alone we cannot see, is pretty tough pill to swallow. So yeah, I think there is that possibility that there's something or somebody out there who maybe did visit at some point and maybe has visited recently even.
Yeah. Well, and even today, like as advanced as technology is going right now, it really makes you wonder, are governments talking to extraterrestrials, or did we really truly recover a UFO or several UFOs and have been able to back engineer their technology? Stuff has advanced so much. I'd say even in the past 25 years, like,
oh yeah,
cell phones have advanced so fast.
I mean, mind you, the sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's
I
fine.
Process thought. I was like, we're leaving.
That's fine.
Fiber optics, which is not that
that
old, was supposedly developed because of the 1947 Roswell incident, the craft that they recovered from that. Again, that's just a theory or a belief. Whether or not it's true, we don't know. But the amount of technology that did happen that came out after that recovery mission is pretty astronomical. Like, it's weird, right? Yeah. Coincidental? Possibly. But nonetheless, weird. So who knows?
Yeah. All right, folks. So we've got some interesting stuff coming up. We've got unraveling demonic possessions secrets next week. That'll be an interesting one. We were trying to get somebody on who is an exorcist. She hadn't responded, so we'll keep trying for that. The following week, we're going to be talking to Brian and Jen Byers. They own a metaphysical shop in Savannah, Georgia, and they are close friends of mine and have been on, Brian has been on a network that Erik and I were on a very long time ago. So a lot of great stuff coming up, a lot of interesting topics coming up, but make sure that you like, share, subscribe, no matter where you're listening. This has been a pre-recorded show on FM New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. Make sure you're checking out all of the shows that are on this network because it is an amazing network. And yeah, until next week, where you'll find us same time, same channel. My name is Justin.
And I'm Erik. Peace.